Hey, the Rulers, DMO73 here with another feature match giving Paul a chance to redeem himself on Carriage Mikage versus Zack Schumann and his take on the glorious Charlotte deck. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Ruler School is brought to you by Odyssey Games, where you can go to pre-order upcoming Force of Will sets, ccgprime.com for singles and supplies, cardodoko.com for those rulers in the international market looking for product, as well as our guest lecturer members Vite Ramen and Full Grammar Alchemist. Class is in session. So as we get into it here with Paul on the left and Zack on the right, just a reminder that Odyssey Games does have their pre-orders up right now for 10 oaths. You can go ahead and get the pre-orders in the description below. It is the climactic finish to the Trinity Cluster. It's going to be exciting and come out right before FowFest, so you're not going to want to miss those pre-orders. You can even pick up at FowFest using the options on their website. So we hope to see you there and to get your product. So Paul is trying again here with Mikage. We're hoping to see a little bit more of what the deck was designed to do when it's not getting rushed down. It is getting to have to face the hurdle of Mask, but it is getting to go first, so it'll have Sub-Ruler active. And, you know, as you see here in Paul's opening hand, there is a Suya, so he's at least working under the assumption that he can try to interact or at least force something out from Zack here to stop him. And if the mask does get answered, then Paul's kind of off to the races. That being said, Paul's deck kind of primarily relates to having races on field, so the racial element's not that big of a deal, but we do want Mikage's activate ability to be pretty active here. So we're going to go for a turn one Suya. We're just going to say, hey, we're going to try to answer it. And unfortunately, Zack does not have the out to protect it. So right out the way, it doesn't happen all the time, but it happens sometimes, and we get the mask out of the way, and we're not going to have to deal with that for the rest of the game, probably, unless Zack is playing a second one and he casts it. Zack's going to go ahead and play a Crimson Moon's Fairy Tale. So this is a really interesting idea here. The deck discards a lot of cards, and so this will say, hey, every time we discard, it'll become an extra 500 life. So that seems pretty good for Zack. Paul setting up life trackers here. Both of these decks in a very good position to be able to drain a lot of life, so we'll have to see exactly what life totals get up to at the end of it. We're going to start by calling Stone and swing it in for 600 damage. Zack's like, yeah, I can't really stop that. I'll take it. 34. You could choose to discard a card here, but ultimately not. Does have that Aqua Feather Phoenix in hand for later. Don't know if that he drew that for turn or not. If it had been in hand, we could have stopped the Suya, but ultimately, if it wasn't, then that wasn't going to help. So going into Paul's turn, we're going to go ahead and play the Stony King. This is a little bit of an interesting play here. There's no Resonator on board to hit. It's not a vampire. The interesting point here is that so Zack's probably going to take the mode to banish something and lose 400 life. And then Paul's going to probably make him discard a card, which then he'll lose 200 life, but then he'll gain 500. So he's honestly kind of weirdly making the Stony King do less. So he'll gain 5 and then lose 2. So ultimately, he got a grand total of 100 life loss from that by playing the Stony King. Putting another body on board, I think, is, you know, probably correct here. Charlotte can't tap down everything. You know, if you just keep applying pressure, once the mask is out of the way, then you can kind of pressure them down to the point where they don't have enough to be able to answer what you're doing. Do see a Glorian's Transformation magic. Do see a Repairing the Broken Mask. Looks like there might be a Falchion in hand. So we do see that Falchion get cast here, paying 100. It's probably going to bounce. I think the right thing to... It's kind of a weird point. So you either bounce the Stony King and it gets recast and you're going to lose the Falchion anyway, or you bounce the Suya, which is also able to be recast and then just bounces you anyway. Arguably, though, because he has Aqua Feather Phoenix in hand, it might be better to bounce the Suya, though ultimately he says, no, let's get the Stony King out of the way here. Now, I'm really curious if we see the Stony King come down immediately again, or if we leave up Will. Ultimately, we are going to say, hey, Falchion can get really big, really gross, really fast, especially since you can just discard and gain 500 life every time you do. So we're going to go ahead and play Stony King and get rid of it. Because that is a consensus ability and not an automatic trigger, unfortunately, Aqua Feather Phoenix will not be able to stop it. So that's just going to get to resolve. Now, we could pitch Repairing the Broken Mask here. to try to tap down the Suya, not take the damage, gain 5, and then cancel the Stony King. Although what we're doing here instead is actually pretty interesting, using the Dominatus Chrono Gear to pitch. We'll gain 5, make a fairy token, and then we'll banish the fairy token to Stony King to keep the Falchion live. So very cool play there from Zack. Discarding the Glorian's Water transformation, which makes sense. He has remnants, so it being in graveyard doesn't really do anything, and you gain another 500 life. So even after life loss from both sides and some attacks, we're still at 4,000, 4,000. Getting a 4 Sea Stone, looking at what's on the top. The one thing he is going to have to be careful here in this matchup for Zack is vampires, if they get that +1/+1, have barrier. So any future resonators get a little bit trickier to be able to answer and protect, mainly because Charlotte's your main form of interaction in the form of discarding to tap down resonators, but if those resonators have barrier anything but white, Charlotte can't hit them. So that's a little bit of a problem. We swing in for 6 with Falchion, Drain, and Bane. We are not even going to try to give it Eternal, which I think is an interesting choice. We're going to just accept that those are going to bounce off of each other. I think Paul forgot that Stony King has Drain. We're going to see an at end of turn pitch of high speed uppercut treatment for Zack. Probably, I imagine we call, at this point in time, we either call Falchion to get rid of all of those, or we call Mask, just to make sure that Mask doesn't come down for the rest of the game. Zack's in an interesting point to be able to interact here. This is probably where we'll see something like repairing the broken Mask to get discarded, just to stop that from happening. Charlotte Effect's going to tap down the Suya, and we do in fact see that reassembling the broken Mask, so we're just going to say, hey, no, we're going to go ahead and cancel that unless you pay 1 for each card in my graveyard, which is 5, so I'm not going to be very successful there. Gonna go ahead and use Mikage to ping 1. Paul misses that he was supposed to pay 100 there because it does take a darkness, and he needed to pay 1 for that. But we caught it on the life total overlay. So we're gonna attempt to move into combat here. Swing in for 6, potentially. Pitch to Dominatus Chrono Gear, gain another 500 life, and get a fairy token. We'll still gain the 500 life, but Paul is going to mirror the activate ability of Dominatus so that he doesn't get to get the token. So we'll swing in and hit him for 4. Right now, Zack is left with just Aquafeather Phoenix, which is not a lot based on what's going on here. So we do see Roamer of the Crimson Moon coming down. This will also help deal with some of the life gain elements. This will trigger the automatic ability of the Sub-Ruler to try to put a +1/+1 counter on it and let him banish a Resonator. And if he does, then gets to ramp a stone, which puts him in a good spot. You see he is playing those obsidian stones. That's pretty good for Paul because he wants that extra will for Mikage. So this lets him kind of do other things while leaving up only 2 stones to then suddenly produce a lot of will at end of turn for Mikage to start pinging things, which is really nice. We're going to see exactly that right now. Oh, we're not using the other mode. We're just going to produce black. And Suya is going to use Curse of Ragnarok. We're going to try to rip that last card out of his hand as the RFG. Now, unfortunately, we can't tap down the Charlotte to keep Aquafeather Phoenix alive to gain another 500. We're just going to unfortunately lose this card. And that was what I was saying about the barrier here from the Sub-Ruler is going to be really helpful. So Aquafeather is gone. Zack's hand is empty. There's a couple of things that we could do here. Paul doesn't have a ton of cards in hand either. He's only got 2. So Zack could potentially just Judgment Charlotte here to refill his hand up to 5, which I think would probably be smart. Ultimately, he does seem like he's maybe... Nope, gonna choose to call stone with Charlotte instead. We're gonna get a second Crimson Moon Fairy Tale coming down here. So we're gonna get, you know, every time we discard a card is 1,000 life. So that's, Paul's gonna have to kind of keep up. Thinking about casting this, Repairing the Broken Mask. To try to refill up his hand size here. At least a little bit. So he'll draw 2, and then discard 1, and then so he'll lose 8, but gain 10, so ultimately gaining 200 life here. Oh no, sorry, I was thinking of Glorian's Transformation Magic, making him draw discard. He's just gaining, drawing 2 cards and losing 8 life. This Rover could put in some serious work in this matchup. I mean, if Zack's hand is pretty low, he's going to want to draw cards to try to recur. That being said, the Crimson Moon's Fairy Tales are putting in a lot of work, making every card discarded an extra 1,000 life. So we go to 45-24 with Romer swinging in. Down comes an Oberazuki. What's in hand? It does seem like Zack's not in a position to be able to react to that. As a Divine Beast of Proto-Paterpolis. And I couldn't quite tell what the other card was. I'm going to get rid of 2 Lilia's Petals to add a bunch of counters, plus the +1/+1 counter from the Sub-Ruler. And we're kind of in the same spot again, where Charlotte's ability to help us tap stuff down isn't helping here because of the barrier granted to these guys. There's no Fates Reunited to remove their barrier. Nothing like that. Do see an inheritance effect being pitched for Divine Beast of Proto-Paterpolis. This is going to trigger and gain Zack 1,000 life because of the 2 Crimson Moon Fairy Tales. The question for Paul is he going to let that inheritance ability resolve? And the answer to that question is no. We're going to see another mirror stop another activate ability. Just going to really locking that down. So the trick here is that if Paul gets Zack's life low enough, there's this weird moment where drawing off of refilling your hand with Charlotte could like kill you, where you'd have to like draw them, and then in response to the triggers from Romer, you have to like pitch cards to be able to try to gain life. So just so you don't die, it's a little bit tricky. Paul's spending some life here to use that stone, like we talked about before, to produce that extra will to ping some of his own resonators during the end step of Zack's turn, so that he can then have those blood counters alive on Mikage. So we're getting close to a point where we're probably going to see a Carriage come down. Paul certainly has enough blood counters to start casting Carriage, and as you see here, so many stones. We're going to attempt to move into combat. As that happens, looks like we're going to see a cast of Glorian's Water Transformation. Going to draw 2 cards and then choose to discard a card this way. So again, he's going to lose 8 for drawing 2 cards. If he discards 1, he will gain another 1,000. So he kind of gains 2 life here. So goes up to 32. Gets to swing in for the damage from Romer. That has a drain because of the Sub-Ruler. Swings in for another 7 here with the Oberazuki, and then we get to see our first Carriage. So Carriage is going to start putting in some serious work here soon. This is going to be able to start reanimating, and you see Zack has some pretty powerful resonators in the graveyard. Things like Sphinx, Divine Beast of Protopaterpolis, all kinds of stuff, which is a little gross. I'm kind of curious for Paul with what he's playing, since he is playing Carriages, whether or not he's playing any copies of Daughter of the Mikage, any cards with Daughter of the Mikage in it. We do see a Hunting Angel get pitched here. This inheritance is destroying an attacking resonator, so both Paul and Zack are a little bit wrong about how Hunting Angel can be used there. It could have been used the previous, like the next turn, but the attack was already over, so that's a little bit of a misplay for the two of them there in sequencing wise. The Hunting Angel, though, is going to get to help him gain 1,000 life when it's discarded. Divine Beast of m.ha is going to be done for the inheritance ability now, which is going to gain Zack another 1,000 life, and so we're going to attempt to get the Sympathy of Rendezvous of Wind and Light, put it into your hand, and then get to animate the Divine Beast, which is at least a body on board, which is helpful. Does have barrier 1 or less, so it is unable to be pinged by Mikage, which is helpful, though Paul's feeling pretty comfortable just pinging his own resonators at this point. Going to try to cast Divine Beast of Protopaterpolis here because you can cast cards with inheritance from your graveyard, thanks to the Divine Beast of m.ha. And then the enter effect of Divine Beast, he paid 4, he gets 2 resonators with inheritance from his graveyard, which is 2 Dominatus Chronogear, which is insane. And Paul's stones are not going to get to recover if they taps them down this turn, which for Paul's sake is not super huge because he can make so much will off of just 2 stones. So he'll make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 will right now. Oh, no, 5. So he uses 2 stones to make 5 will. He's going to ping the Divine Beast a couple of times here because he can hit it. And then finish it off with another 2. Just doing it one at a time. So that's going to be gone. That does put him in a position where Carriage could help him get it next turn, which would be interesting. So he'll draw, and then he's going to use his tokens to animate the Carriage. And the Carriage is a vampire entity, so it should have a +1/+1 counter on it, which we'll get to it soon. Now, Paul does something here before recovery that makes me think that the two of them in this recording misunderstood how Divine Beast works. Divine Beast isn't the thing that stops them from recovering. It grants the ability to the stones that says this card can't recover. So what Paul is doing here is before recovery, he's using the other stone to do the make a bunch of will element. But that doesn't work. I mean, like, he can do it, but then these stones won't recover. And this makes me think that Paul is going to recover these stones. As he starts to try to ping stuff down with the Mikage will that he's produced here, he's going to use the Dominatus to kill the Oberazuki because it only has barrier non-white, and Dominatus is white. It just has tap, kill something. And yeah, this is what I thought. So a little bit of a misconception here from Paul and Zack, that the stones have been granted the ability not to recover, not that Divine Beast is preventing them from recovering. So at this point in time, those stones should be tapped, but they messed that up a little bit here. I don't think it super matters that much. I think if you're still in Paul's shoes, you just do exactly kind of what you did before. You just don't make that will before recovery. You just do the pings like you did at the end of Zack's turn and then go into your turn. But even with tapping the 4 stones at the end of Zack's turn, I still think you have plenty of will here. Mikage's Carriage gets to a swing. We're going to go ahead and animate a Sphinx using its own ability. It is a vampire entity, so in response to trying to give it a +1/+1 counter, we're going to shoot it with Dominatus Chrono Gear, which is super important. And Mikage is running into the other Dominatus Chrono Gear, getting to gain a bunch of life because it has Drain, since it has a +1/+1 counter on it and is a Vampire Resonator. Again, Subruler putting in a lot of work here. Burning another 4 blood counters to play a second Carriage. This thing does not have Mythic. And also a Yggdrasil coming down here to search for a Regalia, which might end up be searching for another copy of Carriage. Starts to search for Kumamara's Bleeding Heart as the sub-Regalia, and then says, wait a minute, this is also a Regalia. Let's grab another Carriage and just start the beatdown and the reanimating so we can start using Zack's deck against him, which is really gross. Really, really gross. So another Carriage gets to come cast down here. They both have +1/+1 counters on it. We're going to be applying a lot of pressure, generating a lot of tokens every single turn. And just for good measure, we're also going to play a Stony King. Just to put another thing on board. This to me makes sense from Paul's perspective. Again, we've talked about before how the life gain from the discards is incredibly relevant. You got to keep answering it. And you have to just flood the board so that Charlotte can't possibly bounce everything. One thing to note here is that the Divine Beast of Proto-Paterpolis is just going to get recast. So like Zack kind of weirdly gets to reset his board every single turn as long as that Divine Beast of Ma'at is on field. That being said, oh, interesting. Stony King got the Divine Beast. Was not what I would expect us to sacrifice there. I would think we would get rid of the Dominatus Chrono Gear, because then we can just reanimate it when we go for the Divine Beast again next turn. Paul representing a whole bunch of damage here. Each of these will be swinging for 1,500. And they currently have Eternal. That's another big problem that Zack has to deal with. Gonna see. To get cast here for a Divine Beast Inheritance ability. Gain an extra 1,000 life. Try to ramp a stone and put it back into your hand and heal the Charlotte, or the Glorious. And now the Glorious can Judgment if you want. I'm not entirely sure that you want to. Calling Stone with Charlotte. Problem is we need to really start answering this board. Paying 4. Probably going to see a cast of that Divine Beast that we use for Inheritance. We're going to get even more Resonators back. So Dominatus is going to get to come back. And Hunting Angel is going to get to come back, which is nice. Hunting Angel can pop the Stony King. It unfortunately can't pop the... it unfortunately can't pop either of the Carriages. But he'll get to gain some life. Oh, he decided to get a second Divine Beast of Proto-Paterpolis instead. Okay. Looks like the card in hand is a Ray Asnable, which doesn't super help us here. Everything's already committed to the board. But in fact, there's a real danger if that Ray Asnable gets reanimated by Paul. I think in this instance they realize what's going on with his stones not being able to recover, which is why you also see me haven't updated the life totals yet, because Paul goes, oh wait, it's given to the stones, they're just not going to recover regardless. Well then I don't think I'm going to actually do anything. just going to accept that these other 3 stones are going to stay tapped, and I'm not going to produce a bunch of extra will right now. We are going to make a flood of tokens, though. Those tokens are probably going to be used to mobilize all 3 of these carriages. And so there's a lot of damage coming at Zack right now. All of these tokens can technically swing, although he wants to keep some alive, at least 3 that can mobilize the carriages next turn if he's going to swing with all of them this turn. That being said, he can just, because he has to use a vampire or a zombie to immobilize them. We swing in for 15. Attempts to get the ability from the trigger to reanimate something. Probably going to wait to get the Sphinx off first. Going to see a Ray Asnable to cancel the automatic ability. I think it only cancels enter effects, not automatics, but maybe I'm wrong. Now, if I'm in Paul's position, I think one of these carriages should animate the other... should animate the Ray Asnable, because then Zack just doesn't have enter effects for the rest of the game, and as a case in point there, then the Charlotte doesn't get to draw him any cards. Like, that feels like it's a pretty huge lockout, which is a bit of a big weakness here. We'll use Hunting Angel to try to pop the Dominatus, which is going to then pop the Hunting Angel in response. So swing will happen, and Paul has now officially gotten a bunch of life thanks to Hunting Angel, and so we'll gain another 12, go up to 10,100. Swing in for the third one. And now I think Paul grabs another Hunting Angel here to pop the Dominatus again, gain another 12. I don't necessarily, again, I don't think I agree with getting Hunting Angel here. I don't think the Hunting Angel was doing anything. I think the lockout here with Zack being at 0 cards is just grab the Ray Asnable, right? Because then at that point in time, at that point in time, there's really nothing he can do. He's in top deck mode. You have so much pressure. Whatever he's top decking isn't going to give him much. It's just not going to be at a super great spot. And you have so much life, and the Dominatus can't even kill the Ray Asnable, so it's like, it just feels like this is just a better play. But that's why we learn. That's why we talk about it and do the 10,000 foot commentary analysis. So all these tokens are out there. They're going to be helpful for being able to do mobilize next turn. Paul only has 1 card in hand, so even that repairing the mask is kind of just really bad. It doesn't give you much to be able to respond. Now, sure, you'll be able to cancel something, but there is a real world where, like, Paul might be able to pay for it. I mean, he really needs to. And at this point in time, it's probably just activate abilities more than anything else. So repairing the broken mask isn't going to help too much. So here's where I talk about. The enter effect is that he's going to get to draw a card. He's also going to get to gain life because he's drawing 4 cards. If we had had the Ray Asnable, we wouldn't be able to draw anything. It'd be stuck with a dead card in hand, and we'd probably have lethal next turn. But we don't. So we get to play a little bit longer. Zack's still not at a great spot here. He is, at this point in time, still not able to bounce those carriages when they become J Resonators because they will have barrier anything non-white, and Charlotte is blue. So we'll just say a pass over to Paul. Use those tokens to try to mobilize the carriages. Go into before recovery, ping in some stuff with Mikage. Just a matter of how much you want to ping stuff with Mikage. If you're going to do it, I think you use the obsidian stone to just put as much pressure on right now as possible. You know, maybe even pop one of those divine beasts off of the board. But ultimately, we just choose to move to recovery. Okay. Our 10th stone has been called for Paul. And now we're just going to get to start going into combat. As we attempt to go into combat, we see a girl staring at. This is pretty good. This does help at least a little bit to kind of stall some stuff out. This does mean we can start bouncing stuff, although it doesn't give us too much because it's a little expensive. And Paul can just swing. So Paul's going to go ahead and swing with this hunting angel. Say, hey, I mean, if you want to block, go for it. I'm honestly kind of surprised we haven't seen Paul try to kill the Charlotte. Because Mikage can hit J-rulers now. So we're going to use Charlotte to bounce the hunting angel back to our own hand, because it bounces back to the owner's hand. So essentially pay to get your hunting angel back and not be taking the damage from it, which is nice. Paul's sitting on 10 stones. So much will, so little time. Doesn't really need to use any of it right now. Can use 2 of the obsidian during this turn to make a bunch of will. We can start pinging these divine beasts off the field. Getting an extra 7 counters onto Mikage just by pinging it. And then we could do that again during Zack's turn. And now, this is Paul not reading. And I love Paul to death. He uses Kumamaru's ability here to try to kill and steal the other divine beast, which is an ability that Kumamaru's Bleeding Heart has when Mikage is judgmented. It is not usable when Mikage is usable on his front side, otherwise it honestly might be a little too strong, but both of them miss that in the game. So learn from our mistakes here. Kumamaru's ability to steal a resonator is only if Mikage is flipped. Now that being said, Paul could have easily just flipped Mikage this turn to do this. Would not have been that big of a deal, but right now Mikage's on his front side, so isn't able to actually do this line. But ripping another one of Zack's resonators off of the board is really gross. So we have Divine Beast over on Paul's side now. And now we get to start kind of just chilling. Hunting Angel is also used here, attempting to be used here to try to kill one of the Carriages. Again, it has to be attacking, but we see a mirror used to stop it, but then a second Hunting Angel is discarded to still kill it. Again, both of them missing a little bit of the reading here on their own cards. Paul's still in a really good position here to close the game out probably next turn, just because of the flood of tokens. Like, we'll have another 4 tokens generated. 2 of them will be able to animate. Mikage can start flipping at this point, and really just kind of go to town. Again, grabbing the Ray Asnable, like if Paul can get the Ray Asnable out from a carriage, he's in a really good spot. Whereas Zack here is a little locked out. So, I mean, the Sphinx can be helpful here. It's pretty safe. Like, it's not going to be able to be pinged by much until something like if the Sphinx gets cast too fast, we'll see Carriage reanimate a Hunting Angel and be able to kill it. We'll see be able to reanimate the Chrono Gears and use that to kill the Sphinx. So Zack's hand here not doing him any big favors. And again, the Divine Beast has barrier, can't be pinged anymore because it has a +1/+1 counter since it's a vampire. So it has barrier non-light, so it can't even be stolen back. Divine Beast of Adaraktia comes down here. Doesn't do a whole lot here, but at least is putting something on board. I imagine we might see a Judgment of Faria just to put another body out. Yeah, we do see that. So Faria of the Divine Beasts coming out here. One free inheritance ability per turn, but no inheritance cards in hand, unfortunately. And Paul doesn't really even need to play any cards at this point in time. He can just use what's on field. So repairing the Broken Mask, not doing a whole lot of work, unfortunately. Not a lot of stuff to be able to target that's meaningful to bounce. If I'm in Paul's shoes, there's a world where we might try to just ping the Faria to death here. This is before recovery. We're going to make a bunch of will. You have enough here to, if we ping Faria one at a time, we can just kill her. He is going to go for the Charlotte first. Oh, no. He is going to go for the Faria. He's going to wait for her to wait for Zack to try to do the God's Art to give it barrier. Just doing it one at a time so that in response to the barrier, you can just finish it off. You've done enough damage at that point in time. So unfortunately, this Faria is not going to be on the board for very long. Oh, he's also, again, using the blood counters here to steal Divine Beast, which he technically would have to be judgmented for Mikage to do. He's going to use the other guys to animate the Carriages, and then also generate 4 more zombie tokens. So Paul's dice army here. Move to still trying to ping stuff. We're going to ping the Faria again. Ping it again. The God's Art to try to give barrier. In response, just keep pinging it even more. Or not. Paul just choosing instead to ping his own zombie tokens instead of to kill the Faria, which I think is an interesting decision. Gonna go ahead and just play a Kumumaru's Bleeding Heart because there's enough things that are damaged. You do see a Reassembling the Broken Mask. 2 attempts to cancel it. We're going to pitch to bounce something back to hand. Can't target the Divine Beast because it has barrier, so it has to target one of the tokens. Get that off the board, and there's so many cards in graveyard, but also Paul's like, that's fine. I don't really care about this card resolving at this point in time. We probably are going to see Mikage Judgmented now. Like, I don't see a reason why we don't. Mikage Judgment, like, there's really no reason to, but maybe that's just my position. Swinging in with a Divine Beast. Gonna get to gain even more life and try to attack here. When that card was discarded, I think they missed that Zack should have a little bit more life, because he did pitch a card. Swinging in with Chariot, he gets to animate something. Zack's like, no, don't take my graveyard. I think you grab either, again, I think you just grab Ray Asnable. He does decide to grab the Sphinx here. That ultimately works too, but I still think that trying to grab the Ray Asnable works better. He ultimately tries to use Faria to bounce the Sphinx to hand, which he can't, but it doesn't matter because the activated ability gets mirrored anyway by Paul. So Zack definitely feeling the pressure here, just everything kind of getting stolen from him. The Sphinx should be a vampire as well. When that Sphinx, you get a Dominatus Chrono Gear, also going to be a vampire. Like, this is pretty much back-breaking. Like, there's really not much that Zack will be able to do here, and Paul has just so much life that there's nothing that Zack could put on pressure this turn that keeps him from dying next turn. An Aqua Feather Phoenix is helpful, but also not. Too little, too late. The board is already established. Now you can bounce a bunch of stuff and try to gain a bunch of life, but again, there's just so much pressure on Paul's board here. And everything has barrier. So I think just Paul forgot to give the +1/+1 counters to it. So gains 1,000 life, does get to bounce back the Dominatus because he forgot to put the counter on it because it's a vampire. Although it might miss timing window, that being said, of when it becomes a vampire. We can talk about it in the comments. Pitching the Dominatus to put a fairy token out onto the field and try to gain another 1,000 life. See, casting. Starts to try to go to cast the Repairing the Broken Mask, but Paul has like one card in hand, so it wouldn't really do anything. Aqua Feather Phoenix still just kind of sitting here. Could choose to just cast it, put another Resonator on board. Doesn't super help when Paul's going to be able to ping whatever he wants off the board, thanks to Mikage. And then next turn, we'll just be able to... I think in Paul's position, there's a world where you, at the end of Zack's turn, make a bunch of will, kill the Faria, go to your turn before recovery, make a bunch of will, kill the Charlotte, recover. If you couldn't kill the Charlotte, Judgment, kill the Charlotte, and then use the Kumamaru to kill the Phoenix, and then you're just done. So, like, this is, unfortunately, just going to be game. He's going to play Aqua Feather Phoenix to put a card back and try to draw a card. Play Divine Beast to try to bring 2 cards back, get a couple Dominatus back. Okay. This is, once again, showing what I was talking about, where if we had had Ray Asnable, this would have been over a long time ago. So he has all this stuff on board. The problem is, what is he going to do with it? And also the problem is, how does he not just die on the crackback? The Dominatuses can kill the Sphinx, but I imagine the Dominatuses are going to get killed this turn. Choosing to hit the Divine Beasts, knowing that his stones aren't going to recover, which I think is interesting. So draw. Doesn't get to recover any stones. Still doing something before recovery. We're going to use Mikage to ping. And then ping Charlotte. And then ping Charlotte. So these stones aren't recovering. I think Paul, once again, forgetting that his stones aren't going to recover, is trying to do something before recovery and then go, oh yeah, wait, that's maybe wrong for me to take any actions. So he's not going to do the pings. Does not want to lose his stones. Going to animate the 2 carriages. Sphinx trigger is going to happen. We're going to see if we get to pump up the board or not. And now we're just going to try to pressure in for lethal here. Mikage is flipped. We're going to be able to start actually using Kumamaru's Bleeding Heart, but we can actually just use these blood counters as -1/-1s to kill whatever we want. The 2 Dominatus are going to hit his 2 inheritance abilities, but I don't think that is that helpful. All of these guys are getting +4/+4, by the way, because he lost the minigame to Sphinx. So, like, this is the lethal turn. Like, everything's going to come in here. Finally grabs the Ray Astable, way more than he could have. Now, interestingly enough, because he animated them and then they gain +4/+4, they will still get to be big. So, these are just both going to swing in. We're going to get the triggers. All of these tokens get to swing in for 600 apiece. The Sphinx gets to swing in for 17. Like, this is unfortunately just carrying out the act of lethal. So Paul finding a way to redeem himself after the game last week with Mikage and getting to show off a little bit of how Mask works here. We'll try that again later in a couple weeks too. Let us know what you guys think about these decks in the comment sections down below. And until next time, this is DMO73 saying class dismissed.